The feedback that I got from a 2017 San Diego event, I got more than one person that said, you should have told us you were Doug Reynolds, because it took us 3 days to work it out. And I kind of tried to work out what was wrong with that and trying to understand that. And I came to the realization that for me, it wasn't about me. It was about all these wonderful speakers and all this wonderful information that people were going to hear about. And I was so focused on just getting up on the stage, giving everybody the ground rules, introducing the first speaker, and getting out of their way. But anyway, after that, on our Florida event after that, I actually stood up there and said, hi, I'm Doug Reynolds. And I told my story about the huge impact that this way of life has had on me and what inspired me to start LowCarbUSA and everything. And so it's on YouTube, and it's under our free videos section on our website. And if you guys are interested in hearing my story, then I'd like to suggest that you rather go and do that, because I've got so much information that I want to give you. I don't want to waste time talking about me. I want to be talking about what we're doing. So we did our very first event in July 2016. We had a whole bunch of people come to us there and say, you need to do one on the East Coast. So we went and did one in Florida the following year in the January. Sean approached us after the one in San Diego and said, why don't you come and help us do one in San Francisco, which is we're here. Next year, we've got San Diego, we've got Florida in January again. We're adding tacking another day onto the end of that thing where we're bringing in Spanish speakers, and we're having a Latino day. I'm trying to see if we can expand into the Latin market. We are joining up with LowCarb Indonesia, and we're taking a few speakers over to Jakarta in April. So we're doing one in April. Then we're going back with Gary Fettke to Tasmania, and we're taking over a little boutique hotel in Tasmania, and we're going to have a high-end, like we're calling it, an immersion. So you get to spend, there's 8 rooms, I think, so there's like 16 people max are going to get to spend 5 days talking with Georgia Eid and Gary Fettke and getting to spend time with them while we do all these different activities and spend a day learning to cook in the agrarian kitchen and stuff. That's going to be awesome. So that's going to be announced within the next couple of weeks. We come back after that. We've got Seattle in the May, and then we're back in San Diego in July. So from one conference in 2016, it's grown into quite an extensive portfolio of events that we do. But when we started this, my whole idea was not to just do a conference in San Diego. It was to try and provide or help create a community and provide resources to all these people that are trying to do this, physicians and medical practitioners and the people that were actually trying to implement it for themselves in their lives. And so one of the first things that we did was to create a database of medical practitioners. And there's actually one that we've done for dietitians and nutritionists as well. I'm just showing the one for medical practitioners here. Anybody can come in here, put in their contact information, and people that are coming to look for practitioners can search by zip code and find people within a certain range of that zip code that they could find people to help them. Because I think that's one of the biggest problems. There's so many people that want to do this, but unfortunately, most of them, when they go to their doctor that says, no, you're going to die, you absolutely cannot do this. And so for them to find a doctor that's at least open to the conversation is really difficult. So this is hopefully, we've got about 500 doctors already in this database, and it's growing all the time. And you'll see there as well that there's some description on the side about this certification stuff, and I'll get to that a little bit later. So the next thing that we added was this whole scientific section. Somebody mentioned it a bit earlier, but Sarah, who's just been up now, and Nina Teicholz actually put together a Excel spreadsheet with about 100 different papers that they were handing out via the Nutrition Coalition to people that were, when they were trying to encourage people to contribute ideas and recommendations for when they were soliciting input for when they were trying to look at updating the dietary guidelines. So all of those papers are in here, plus a whole lot of other ones. And where we can, we've got the full text. If not, it just goes to the abstract. And we're constantly applying to all these different publications and stuff to get access to the full text. And whenever we get it, we actually got one a couple of days ago, then we'll obviously change out the abstract for the full text on here. So there's also a section there for a bunch of different, all the articles that we come across that are really interesting. And also any of the books that we feel are of great value. There's a list of those in there as well. So I put this thing in here. I wasn't going to talk about it now, but it's just so interesting to me that I felt I could talk about this for hours, but I'll give you a couple of minutes here. We got approached by a guy called Dr. Ben Bokikio, and he's got like 2 PhDs in exercise physiology and stuff, and he says he's been doing this for like 40 years. And what he talks about is saying that we all know, and we've heard about it a few times over these last day and a half already, that calories in, calories out is garbage, right? And that you can't, it's all about exercise, and it's not all about your diet, and it's not about exercise. You can't exercise yourself out of diabetes, for instance. But what he's saying is that exercise can be and should be very important. But he talks about a very specific type of exercise where you do it for a very short time and take your muscles to failure. And in doing so, if you do it properly, what it actually does is activate a lot of the very same metabolic pathways that a ketogenic diet or carbohydrate restriction does. And so it forms an awesome adjunct to implementing this carbohydrate restriction situation as well. And he literally came, I mean, everybody's looking for the quick fix, right? He came to us and he said, in fact, his book says 15 minutes to health. 15 minutes twice a week. And everybody says garbage, right? And I kind of listened to what he said when he pitched this to me, and it sort of sounded really interesting and made sense. And I gave him a breakout session in July in San Diego, and it was an enormous hit. He sold out of his books like in a heartbeat. And we're actually going to have him in Florida. He's going to do a full-length CME-accredited talk with all the actual science behind all of this. And he'll be back in July in San Diego as well. He and I have got together with the president of the National Association of Sports Nutrition. They've rewritten their whole text incorporating low-carbohydrate philosophies into their nutrition program. We're developing a course for coaches to learn about this exercise regime. And after the San Diego event, he took Pam and I, we met up with him a couple of weeks later. So this was like towards the end of August. We went to meet him, and he actually took us through the exercise protocol himself. And I'd been trying to do some gym in the last couple of years. I'm a runner, and my story goes, I mean, I was putting on weight no matter how much I was running. It wasn't helping me. But even worse than that was I was starting to feel this thing about I'm in my 50s and starting to feel like I'm losing my strength. My muscles are fading away. You know, as you get older, that's the way it is. And I started to try and introduce some gym into that to try and slow that down a bit. And I wasn't really feeling like I was getting much out of it, except a lot of sore muscles and feeling actually really tired when I was going on my run. And then Ben took us, and I watched his videos and stuff, and I was kind of trying to sort of do what he was talking about. But then when he took us through the workout, I realized that, oh, okay, so that's how you do it. And So we've been doing it, Pam and I have been doing it since towards the end of August. Twice a week, 15 minutes. And the whole concept is that you take your muscles to failure, and then you have enough time to recover. And what he talks about there is that you actually, apart from activating these metabolic pathways, he never talks about calories or anything. It's all about the metabolic pathways. But what it also does is that because you're going to failure and then you're giving yourself enough time to recover, you adapt upwardly. And so I had a DEXA scan done literally the day after we did that first workout. And I actually got on the machine here with this in-body thing and had another scan just now. And in 2.5 months, my weight has increased by just over 3.5 pounds. And my lean body mass has increased by 4 pounds. Okay? 15 minutes twice a week. It's pretty incredible. And I can personally now vouch for it. It's not garbage. It's brilliant. And he's got a book. If you look under our books section, there's a link there to go and get it. It's like $12 on Amazon. I promise you, it's the best $12 you'll ever spend. It's brilliant. Okay, so I put her picture up here just because she's a rock star. You'll hear, so I was talking to Gary Taubes about, after 2017, coming back to talk in 2018, and he said, why don't you have a session where you get all the physicians that are trying to implement this to give you feedback about their struggles, about their successes, etc. And it's kind of the theme for his next book. So, you know, it was going to be of some interest to him as well. So, but I thought it was a really cool idea. And, you know, we put it on the schedule. And about a month before the event, I kind of called him and I said, all right, so what's this session going to look like? And he says, well, I don't really know. But why don't we get Adele Height to come and moderate it? Because he'd been talking to Adele about these ideas that he's had. And in fact, she actually had a lot more ideas than him, in fact. And that was, I think, where he got some of the ideas from. So I said, okay. And I wrote to her and I said, Adele, so Gary Taubes is suggesting that you come and moderate this little session that we have. And she wrote back and she sent me about a 3-page Word document. And I swear, I was telling someone last night, I literally went weak at the knees. It was, oh my God, Adele, seriously? I just asked if you would come and moderate this talk. It's like this brain dump of all these ideas that she had. And I started to read it over and over and over again. And the more I read, the more it started to occur to me that a lot of what she's talking about, I had already started to get these building blocks in place, not knowing about this, it was just happening. And so eventually I got to the stage where I said, okay, you know, careful what you wish for. And so instead of just being this session to get feedback from medical practitioners, it turned into this whole concept of trying to establish a standard of care. And and I think it came from the fact that her whole document started off by she had been on a jury in a malpractice suit, and the judge had explained to the jury what standard of care meant, because they had to understand that in order to be able to make a decision on this case. And so it was in her document, and I think a lot of the verbiage in here is what started to jump out at me. So standard of care is not an actual document. It's not a set of clinical guidelines. It's not what all these doctors are taught in college. It's about what a community of physicians or medical practitioners in a similar environment with similar training, what they actually do, and the consensus on what they should all do in any particular situation, all right? And the things that jumped out at me here were community, the mention that guidelines in and of themselves are not standard of care, but they can contribute extensively to it, and training. And so we decided, okay, there's these three parts. I will get to that just now. The training I've got under control, the community part I'm starting to build, and I can extend that. And what we need is some clinical guidelines. And so we put together a panel of advisors. So first of all, I wrote this blog about what we were trying to do, and we continue to update this as the journey carries on. But what we did was we created a panel of advisors to oversee the work that Adele was doing on these clinical guidelines. And I mean, you'll see there that and these are, you know, some of the more prominent people that I've come into contact with over the last 3 years, and asked them to help me to do this. Would they be prepared to be a part of this panel? And not one of them even hesitated for a heartbeat before saying, absolutely, we'd love to help any way we can. And that in and of itself made me start to realize, you know what, maybe we're onto something here. So Adele, and that's why I put her picture up there, she's just been phenomenal. And so she's like the herder of cats, as she puts it. And what she's doing is she's developing this document. There's a general document for everything that kind of applies to everyone. And then what we're going to do is have like an addendum for each specific condition. So because there's always going to be caveats and differences for every particular condition that we're trying to consider here. And she's been really good about, okay, this is what we all agree on. And wherever there's some kind of difference of opinion, she'll highlight that and say, okay, these are 2, 3 different opinions on this particular issue. And so there's a difference of opinion, and I'm trying to remember where we were going here. She just wants to make sure that oh, you're right. So if it's just a difference of opinion, guys feel differently about it, then she'll document that, and otherwise it'll say, you know what, the reason that there's no consensus here is because there's not enough data. And so this particular issue needs more research, it needs more clinical trials, whatever. So what I've done is taken a snapshot of what she's developed so far. And it's actually this is just the general guidelines document, and it's actually pretty far advanced. And so if you go to our website, this is our main website is LowCarbUSA.org. The feedback is not in our navigation, so that's why I'm giving you the URL here. It's not, you can't go and navigate to it from our webpage. But if you go there, it's going to take you to this page, and there's a way that you can go and click on those guidelines and see what we've produced so far. And I reckon, even as it stands, it can be of a lot of use to a lot of people, just as it is. But we're going to continue to develop this and eventually get it published in some publicly available space somewhere, and it's going to be awesome. And there's also a place there for you guys to leave comments and stuff. Although, I mean, Adele's been getting, not just from our panel, she's been approaching Asima Lotra and Karen Zinn and people all over the world to get as much feedback as she can on this. But we also got a lot of feedback from that session in San Diego, and this is a chance for you guys as well. If you want to leave comments, if you read that stuff and you have comments, suggestions, whatever, then feel free to get in there and make those suggestions, and I guarantee you that Adele will take it into consideration. Okay, so the first part was the guidelines. We feel like we have to have, and what we're doing is it's guidelines for the prescription of carbohydrate reduction as a therapeutic intervention. Okay, we're not talking about a particular diet. We're not talking about anything. Sarah was talking about every single person is different. Every single condition is, every single situation is different. So that all has to be taken into account. I must be very proud of this because I put it in twice and I shouldn't have. So the other part of it was the community. You know, if you come to our very first event, we packed a bunch of speakers in like that, and everything was like really tight. But since then, we've started to become aware of the fact of how important developing a culture of community is. We're still, is Steve here? We're still one of the all heretics here, right? So the people that are trying to do it are getting flack from their family, from their friends, and unfortunately from a lot of them, from their doctors as well. And we need to have a place where people could come and feel safe, where they could talk to people and they weren't going to get attacked. And it became more apparent as well as that the doctors as well also need a place where they can talk to other physicians and medical professionals who actually get it as well, because a lot of them finding that their colleagues are attacking them. And so we had already started to create this community. We had like a free membership area where we've just introduced now like a Facebook-like interface where people can have discussions and stuff. A higher level place where people get access to all our paid content, videos and coaching classes and all that kind of stuff. But so what I did then was I said, all right, we've got this community, let's build on that and actually take it one step further and create these professional environments for dietitians and nutritionists and medical professionals. So that's what we've done. We've created these professional communities now where they can have discussions and cases and ask questions. And over time, it's those discussions that are going to establish the standard of care, right? And then training was the other thing. We know that most of the, in the medical training, nutrition is not a part of that, or a very, very small part of that. And so we get approached, actually, the timing all came together. The Noakes Foundation in South Africa, Tim Noakes, they spun off a thing called the Nutrition Network off the Noakes Foundation, and they have put together an extensive online training course specifically targeted at doctors and allied health professionals. And they had actually approached me to ask if I would help them promote it here in the States and to the community of people actually around the world that are following our organization. And so we had just started to do that when all of this came together. So now suddenly we've got the training piece as well. So now we can provide training. We've got this community of people where we can start to establish a consensus over time, okay? And at the same time, we are developing these guidelines that will give everybody a place to start. And they can try it and discuss why they're not having success with that other kind of thing. We'll maybe update the guidelines based on those discussions. But over time, what we're really excited about is that we are going to be able to develop this consensus. We're actually going to be able to point to something. If everything happens, someone ends up in court, we'll actually be able to point to something and say, this is the standard of care for carbohydrate restriction, because up until now it has never existed. Okay, so I've mentioned the certification. So what we've developed now is saying, okay, so if you become an active part of our professional community and you contribute to our efforts to establish this standard of care, at the same time you're learning and becoming a part of this consensus, if you undergo the training, then we can certify that you basically know what you're talking about. Okay, because anybody can go in there and put their contact information in saying, okay, I am a keto-friendly doctor, or I'm a keto-friendly dietitian. But, you know, we don't necessarily know that for sure. I can't certify someone that just puts their information in there. But if they come in and they actively take part in what we're trying to do, and they go through the training, then we can say, you know what, I am prepared to certify that this person is someone that you can rely on and trust if you're looking for help in trying to implement this in your life. So we have this certification now for medical professionals. We have it for dietitians, nutritionists, And once we get the exercise stuff, all that done with Dr. Ben, we'll probably have one for sports coaches and stuff as well. So I think what's to me is we do whatever we can to try and help Nina and the Nutrition Coalition. She works tirelessly to try and get the guidelines changed. But there's such financial and pharmaceutical and political pressure on making those changes that I don't know how long that's going to take. And we cannot wait for those guidelines to change before we make changes in the medical community. And so I feel like this is the way. Why not have the medical community lead the changes in the guidelines? We can't wait for the guidelines to change. And we're not fighting with everyone. We're not telling anybody you're wrong and we're right. We're just saying, if you want to consider carbohydrate restriction as an option, come here and learn about it. And yeah, I think Dr. Jacob Wilson, whenever he talks at our events, he always finishes off by saying, if not us, then who? And if not now, then when? Okay, thank you very much.